Welcome back, everybody, to Just Talk Hoops podcast. Hopefully, you guys have had a good week and a half. It's been a little bit of a while since we did our last episode, but I was waiting to see the March Madness final bracket until I made my next episode because that's pretty much what we're going to be talking about today. Now, because it's been a little while, Bam Adebayo also had a night last week, and we haven't talked about that yet, so I'm going to talk about that, and then we're just going to get into March Madness. Obviously, if you've listened to the show a good bit, then you know that I'm not someone who watches a ton of college basketball. I really enjoy it when I do, but my area of expertise is the NBA. So we'll talk a bit about college, but it will be much more from a casual fan perspective as opposed to someone who is really into it and really into the history of it like I am with the NBA. So we're going to do that. And then, of course, our games of the week, they're going to be a little bit different this week just because we are focusing on college basketball. And we should still have an episode out for you going into the weekend as well. We should have a weekend episode out as well. So that shouldn't be too long of a break in between, hopefully. Sometimes I say I'm going to get one out at some point and it doesn't. And then these game of the weeks, I'll talk about that a little bit later. That'll be the end of the episode. But let's start with the Bam Adebayo stuff because that is the most kind of news since our last episode. So Bam Adebayo, in case you haven't heard about this because you were living under a rock or something like that, he dropped 83 points, which it surpasses Kobe Bryant for the second most points of all time, or in a single game all time. Still behind Wilt Chamberlain, obviously, who had that 100 bomb. And I know a lot of people have made conspiracies about, well, I think Bam having 83 that just shows that Wilt actually did drop 100, because if Bam can have 83, then Wilt, who was significantly more athletic and significantly more talented than pretty much everyone he was playing. Obviously, there were some guys that were more tricky, and there were some greats from that time, but that's not who he dropped it against. I think that just kind of shows that, yes, in fact, he did do that, and all the conspiracy theories can kind of go away. Now, let's talk a little bit about the Bam game, because I've seen a couple different schools of thought on this. One of them is it was a boring game. He was hunting the 83, whatever. People kind of trying to discredit the accomplishment. I do think it was somewhat of a boring game. Now, I didn't watch the whole thing, so I didn't see him when he dropped, 31 in the first quarter. He had 40-something at half. I didn't see that whole part. I tuned in part of the way through the third quarter. And by that time, it was sort of hunting it, right? They're triple teaming him. The Wizards are triple teaming him, and the Heat are kind of forcing their way into Bam territory, right? They're challenging the charging call on him. They're doing all this other stuff. They're missing the free throw so Bam can get, stuff like that. Now, I understand that's not real basketball, but also it was a blowout win. Who cares if they're trying to get their guy a super cool accomplishment? I think, yeah, go ahead. For Bam, this is the coolest moment ever, right? This is putting your name in the history books. And for the rest of forever, Bam Adebayo will go down as having an 80-plus point game, which is right now only a category that 3 people can put themselves into, which is really, really cool for Bam Adebayo. And it's cool for the Heat, right? It's something that this has been a okay season, but it hasn't been super standout. They've obviously had some good performances from their guys, but they haven't been a favorite in the East. I don't really look at them as a contender. And Tyler Hero and Norman Powell goes out, which seems like it would make it less interesting, but then you have this, and that's cool. I think from Bam and the Heat perspective, this is an incredible feat, and they should be celebrating it, of course. From the Wizards' perspective, it's man, we just got 83 dropped on us, right? That is unfortunate if you're the Wizards, but it's the Wizards, Anyway, the fans that are saying this doesn't matter, this isn't cool, I think it is cool. I think this is awesome to see this record broken, because there were a lot of people thinking that this was someone untouchable. Now, we've seen guys drop 70 at an increasing rate in the past few years, right? We've seen it be more and more it's easier to get those bigger scoring numbers because of the revolution of the three-point ball, right? A lot of people are shooting threes, and the fact that the offensive players today are extremely skilled, and there are some calls the refs do tend to give the benefit of the doubt to the offense instead of the defense. that's a different story, right? Bam Adebayo, he drops 83. Like, that's still something that it's difficult to do no matter what. Like, people saying, oh, this generation soft, whatever. And I know there's going to be those people saying that. They're like, well, if Bam can drop 83, anyone can drop 80. That's just not true. Bam was feeling it, right? Bam had a really good night. And yes, they did feed him the ball because, of course, you're going to. Like, Kobe and Wilt did not have entirely ethical, like, oh, yeah, I just went and dropped that many points because that's what we needed to win. No, that's not what happened, right? I think it's just cool for Bam Adebayo to get this record. And the people that are hating on it, it's like, whatever. Like, you guys are kind of miserable. Now, I understand it wasn't the most entertaining game to watch. I get that. But whatever. It's still cool to see the record broken. Now, one thing that I do think this kind of does show is that these type of records are stuff that we cannot base our all-time debates off of. Because I started seeing people being like, well, I think all of a sudden, Bam's starting to move up the list, like he's skyrocketing. And I'm like, I don't think that should be the case. Now, I think this is cool, and you can bring this up when you're talking about Bam in all-time discourse because it is incredibly impressive. So when you talk about what his offensive ceiling is, right, then yeah, you can bring this up. Now, that doesn't mean that, oh, Bam Adebayo is one of the 3 best scorers of all time. That's not what this means, right? So I think that we kind of have to look away from, oh, like these are records that we can use as a, tell-all. Like, no, I think it's the same thing with all-time point records or points per game. You have to look at all of the things in their totality, right? Stats sometimes do lie. So I think that that's something that we kind of have to move away for. Now, at the end of the day, I don't think it's a bad thing that Bam got the record. I think it's cool for him. I think that it's cool for the NBA. I think it's cool for the Heat. Now, what I will say is Bam is not one of the first, 30 names that I would have said if you'd expect, if someone had told me, oh, someone's going to break Kobe's 81-point record this year, right? I would have been like Luka, Shea, hell, Jaylen Brown, Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell, Jokic, even though he passes a lot, Curry. There are a lot that I would have said before. Even maybe Kevin Durant just wanted 83, there's just a lot of names I would have said before Bam. But it's cool that Bam, I don't know. I think from my perspective, it's a cool record. Does it change a whole lot? Not really. Now there's just a different record to chase. All the people saying that he should have not broken Kobe's record to respect it, they don't understand that this is a competitive sport. They don't understand that these guys are out to get theirs. They're not going to, you can respect the memory of Kobe by saying, wow, it's so cool that I broke Kobe's record. He was a great player. You don't have to be like, I'm not going to break it because I don't want to. I think that's a ridiculous take. I don't agree with it. But I do think that, I don't know, some people are putting too much stake into it in one direction or the other. It's just a cool moment. Now, who do I think is going to break that next? I think Luka's got the best chance because Luka he shoots at such a high volume and he's very, very difficult to guard. Or so I've heard. I think I could probably do it. As a 5'11", white guy. I think I've got that. I think I locked it up. Respectfully, right? But anyway, I think Luka would probably be the guy who would be most likely to drop 84 or 85 because we've seen him drop 70 already, and I think that was in regular play or in regulation play or two. It wasn't in overtime or anything. Donovan Mitchell got 70 something, went into overtime. Obviously, still incredibly impressive. Still was a cool game. Devin Booker's had 70. Embiid had 70 something. So it's there's plenty of guys who could do it, right? They weren't that far off. I think Luka's the most likely though. If I had to guess who would be next, I think it would be Luka. Anyway, we can move on to the March Madness stuff. That was just kind of something that I wanted to touch on a little bit. Now, disclaimer, before we start talking about March Madness, I do not watch tons of college basketball. I am not the most knowledgeable about this. I know a lot about the NBA. I feel very confident in my NBA knowledge. March Madness, college knowledge, especially with the history of it. This year I've watched more than in past years, especially because of the NBA prospects, but that's a lot of what I look at it for is oh, this guy's going to the NBA, this guy's a draft prospect, whatever. I think it's still super fun basketball, and I think March Madness might be the greatest sports event in the world, in my opinion. I'm also a basketball guy, so that makes sense. But I mean, I think that it's going to be really fun this year, especially since we just have incredible levels of talent. Like 1 through 6 or something like that are all guys who I feel like could go first in the draft pretty much any other year. I mean, you look at, obviously you got Boozer, you got Debonsa. I still don't know how to pronounce that. Darren Peterson, Caleb Wilson, and then like you've got Kingston Flemings and Darius Acuff. I think Acuff is a guy who, I mean, he seems like someone who is going to tear up March Madness. And I think if any like 4 seed is going to make a run into the Final Four or something like that, I think it's going to be Arkansas. I just think that he's such a talented player, and his mold fits what we've seen work well in March Madness in the past. I feel like Acuff is just someone who his ability as a floor general and as a scorer is so ridiculously off the charts that Arkansas, along with they've got athletes, they've got a really solid team around them, they've got a really good athletic core, and I feel like they've got enough stuff. They've got enough that I feel like they could upset a team, especially in March when it's one, like, even if they're not necessarily better than a team they'd face, because as the 4 seed they'd have to play. I'm pulling up the bracket right now. They'd have to go and play one of the 1 seeds eventually, obviously. And I think they would go up against... Yeah, they'd go up against Arizona, who I think Arizona is... If they were to get to the Sweet 16, and Arizona was to get there as well, they would have to play Arizona. I think Arizona is one of those teams where I look at them and I say, that's probably my favorite to win it all. I just think their defense, their size is something that they're really, really... it's just like it's something that once again feels like it works in March, right? Being able to crash the glass, being able to play good defense, being able to make it difficult for other teams to get into their flow, especially since they're not going to have multiple games to get used to looking at your defense. They're going to just have to go out and play. Defense is something that if you're bought in enough and you have enough defensive ability, no matter how good of an offensive player or offensive team you're going against, you're going to be able to get some stops. Now, is that 100%? No, of course not. Nothing in March is 100%. Nothing in basketball at all is 100%. I still would take Arizona over Arkansas, but I feel like Arkansas would be my favorite to make some noise as like a 4 or 5 seed range. I think that, all 4 1 seeds feel like they could win it all. I think they're all so good that it's like any of them could win. Now, Duke is missing Caleb Foster, which is a big loss for them, right? I still don't know how many teams are going to have an answer for Duke, especially since Cam Boozer has been playing such incredible basketball this year. But I think that maybe that hurts their chances a little bit, especially since the division that they're in, the region, is so insanely stacked that it's going to be tricky. Because even like Duke got the number 1 overall seed, they would have to beat St. John's, Kansas, not both of them, because those two would have to, but like the teams in their bracket just include St. John's, Kansas, Michigan State, UConn, and then some other teams like UCLA and Louisville, who I think are not bad teams. Now, I would take Duke pretty comfortably against them, but any of those other teams could give Duke a run for their money. I really like St. John's. Now, I think they're just so kind of hit or miss. Like, I feel like they're either going to go on a crazy run and beat a bunch of good teams, or they're going to like lose to Northern Iowa in the first round. I'm a little bit worried about that from someone who's kind of a fan of St. John's. One team that I feel like is going to get upset might be Louisville. Now, I think they should still be slightly favored, but South Florida is a good basketball team, and Louisville has their share of issues. So if you want to know, I could give you my first round picks. We'll just do that. We've got plenty of time. In the East region, I'm taking Duke. I'm taking Ohio State. Ohio State TCU is going to be a good game. I'm leaning Ohio State very closely. I don't remember exactly what stats. Like, I look through stats on these teams. Like I said, I don't watch a ton, so that's kind of what I have to revert to. But then I took St. John's, Kansas. So like I said, St. John's is a team that I don't entirely trust, but I do think they should at least, they're talented enough to at least get out of the first round. Kansas is an interesting one because Peterson, obviously he's been We talked about him a little bit last week, didn't we? He's been a little bit hit or miss in terms of playing time, but once you get into the tournament, like he's going to be playing. So we're going to see him hopefully at full strength. We don't know if those injuries and stuff have been nagging him a little bit, but I think it should be something that he's going to be playing, I assume, every single game, and most of the minutes of every single game, just because he's your guy, right? Like he's one of the best scorers in college basketball. So it's going to be interesting to see what that team look like when he's fully there. So far, they've looked good this season. But then, once again, even if they're playing California Baptist in the first round. Even if they beat them, they have to play St. John's, and after that, possibly Duke. So it's a very difficult. Wow, what a word! Very difficult road for the Jayhawks. But I do think that if they can just get going, I would take them over St. John's. I don't think I'd take them over Duke, but it depends how they look. So I'm just going to do like my official first round predictions right now. And I've made more than one bracket, but this is the one that I trust the most. I'm taking South Florida over Louisville. I just feel like that feels like an upset. You know what I mean? I go off of vibes in March Madness. I'll be completely honest with you. Like I look at the stats and I look at the way I determine it. Good rebounding teams, good 3-point. Like if you're a top seed, I want you to be good at rebounding. I want you to be good at limiting offensive rebounding from the other team. I want you to be good at limiting turnovers. I want you to have good defense, right? If you're a lower seed team, I want you to be able to force turnovers, and I want you to be able to shoot the ball. If a team can shoot really well, then I'm liable to pick them. I can't remember entirely why I picked all the upsets that I did, but USF, I always want to say UCF. We'll get to them. USF is a team that they just fit. They just felt right. Michigan State, I took over North Dakota State. I honestly think North Dakota State could be an upset watch team, but I think Michigan State's good enough that they should be able to limit that. I took UCLA over UCF. I originally was thinking UCF. I just don't entirely trust them. I do think UCLA is a good team that should be good for a round. I don't know if they'll get past second round, but I do think that they'll play well enough to get past that first one. UConn is the next one I took over Furman. That one's pretty much a gimme. Now, UConn is a very tenured team, which I do think helps. That's another thing I look at is like how used to the lights are you, right? Like how storied is your franchise, at least in the past few years, and like how ready are you for the big stage? That goes right into South when I took Florida over either Lehigh or what was the other one? I can't remember who the other first four team is. Those games are just starting up as I'm recording this because I'm recording this the day before you guys will see it. And I mean, that's a team that I think should be. I mean, those are some games I think should be fun. I think Florida should be one to look out for. That's the one that I'm talking about. I'm not super high on any of the first four teams. We'll talk about them in a second. Clemson versus Iowa. I'm taking Iowa, baby. I am a Hawkeyes fan for the most part. Now, I'm not going to college there, so my allegiances may shift a little bit towards the college I go to. But Iowa, I got family from there. I'm taking Iowa. They're also one that this isn't just bias, right? Now, I do have a biased bracket picked out where I have Iowa beating Florida and, going all the way. Is that going to happen? No, probably not. But one thing about Iowa is they're a scary team because they can shoot the ball really, really well. And we've seen it in the past that teams that can shoot the ball and players that can shoot the ball, they sometimes succeed in March Madness. Now, sometimes the shots just don't fall. And they get out in the first round and they lose by a ton because they just chucked up threes and they didn't go in. Iowa's a good shooting team, right? I think we could see sort of a run from them where it's like this team creates issues. Now, I think they'd beat Clemson. I think they would lose to Florida, but I wouldn't be certain. After them, Vanderbilt, McNeese. I do kind of see a McNeese, the Cinderella type of thing happening, but seeing as that happened like last year, I don't trust them to have two in a row. I feel like other teams will be more prepared for them. Give me Vanderbilt. Nebraska, Troy. Now, I think, is Nebraska the one that's never won a March Madness game? Is that them? Like they've never won a game in March? Give me Troy. Not because of that. It's another one that just sort of feels like it. In most of my other, I think I did like 6 real brackets, like 6 serious brackets. I normally have like a couple that are my main brackets and then some other ones just like with fun stuff happening. I think that I have Nebraska winning in most of them, just gut feeling. Then I have North Carolina beating VCU. Now I know Caleb Wilson being out does hurt North Carolina a little bit. I still think that they're a really good team even without that. I think VCU has a chance, and I think that should be a close game, but I would take UNC at least in the first round. Illinois versus Penn. Now that guy, what was his name? Power, LJ Power, was that it? I don't know if I'm getting the first name right. He had an incredible game in the conference championship for Penn. I'm taking Illinois. As much as I would love to see him just go off and make a Cinderella run, I cannot trust that. And Illinois is a team that I actually am really high on. I think in this bracket, I have them going to the Final Four, just to be completely honest with you. Illinois is a team I believe in. Do I actually think they'll make it that far? I don't know, right? Obviously, Houston and Florida are both in this same region, which is going to make it really difficult. Houston is one of the teams that I think they're the best 2 seed or the best chance of going to the biggest stage. I do think UConn is in the debate for that, or Iowa State. There are all options, but I do think Houston is probably the most dangerous of that group. So it's going to be tricky for Illinois. I just believe in them. You can tell that I'm a casual college basketball watcher, and I'm not trying to hide that because I'm literally just going, they just feel right. They just feel like winners. That's what they feel like to me. They just, this is based off of, I do look at stats and stuff for this, and Illinois is a very solid statistical team, especially with the criteria that I look at. But you can't tell the whole story from stats. I do not have enough eye test knowledge on this to really make great decisions. Houston is a team I've watched a lot. That might be why I think they're the best 2 seed. It's based off of things like that. St. Mary's, Texas A&M. I took Texas A&M. That one's a close one. I think I liked a couple of Texas and A&M stats a little bit more. Houston, Idaho. I'm taking Houston. We just talked about Houston. They've got such great size. Kingston Flemings is a baller. They should be able to compete if they can get past, they've got a couple tough teams to go against, but when they go against a team like Florida, Houston sort of has the size to maybe limit some of the stuff that Florida can do because Florida's very based off of size and their rebounding and stuff like that. So they might be able to kind of combat each other with that. And then you look to their guard play and you say, hey, maybe Kingston Flemings can get it done. I think Houston is honestly one of my favorites to win it all. I think if you look past 1 seeds, those are my guys. On the West, give me Long Island University over Arizona. I'm kidding. Give me Arizona. I was looking at the odds for that earlier with my buddy who's an Arizona fan. Long Island has like a 0.3% chance to win, and the spread is like 30.5. So it's like what they're saying is if Long Island can even bring it within 31, they did better than expected. That's insane. I honestly, and I'm not going to give out gambling advice because I don't want to condone anyone losing money on my behalf. But I honestly would take Long Island to not to win, obviously, but to cover that, just because they're going to want it so bad, seeing as they're a team that's never in March Madness, that they're not going to let their foot off the gas at any point. So they're just going to, even if Arizona's up by 40, they might, Long Island might rattle off 12 just because they want to keep it somewhat close. I mean, not close, but just, they're just going to want to keep fighting. It's LIU. How often do they get here? Never. Once again, don't take my word on that. But that's just how I feel. Give me Villanova, Utah State is one I've gone back and forth forever about. Villanova, I don't totally trust some of their issues. Now, or I don't totally trust them. I do feel like they have some issues, but I don't know if I can really say, oh, I can look past. Like, I don't. I honestly do not know. I'm in between on those. I'm gonna take Villanova barely, and I'll say them, but I don't totally trust them. I would not be surprised at all if Utah State won that. The next one, Wisconsin's an interesting team because they've beat a lot of good teams and lost to a lot of bad teams. In the sense of like they beat Michigan, right? And I mean, beating Michigan is no small feat. But then they also lost to like what was it? They lost to some smaller school, like some school that was just like you shouldn't be losing to them if you're looking to contend. Um, High Point is one that people are very, very into picking as an upset. Uh, I'm gonna take Wisconsin just because I do think they're a better team, and I can't pick against the team that's beat Michigan. Or maybe I can, but I'm not going to at this point. I'm taking Arkansas. I'm very high on Arkansas against Hawaii. I think Hawaii, honestly, if they're playing somewhere else, someone else might have a chance for a Cinderella run. But I just don't trust them against Arkansas. I think Acuff and them are going to be able to get it done. BYU versus Texas NCSU, one of the two of them. They play tonight, so by the time that this gets released, then you guys will already know. I think, maybe no, they play tomorrow. They play tomorrow. Yeah. Um, I don't remember. Anyway, I'm taking BYU there. It's difficult for me to say that they're going to lose to a team when I don't even know who they're playing yet. AJ and them, I don't totally trust the rest of that team, and I think that Texas especially would have a chance to beat them. But I would take BYU here. Gonzaga, Kennesaw State. Give me an upset. We rhyme with Kennesaw. Uh, Gonzaga is a really talented team, and I think that they've got a chance to go far. I think they've got a chance to go to the Sweet 16, maybe the Elite 8, maybe all the way to the Final Four. Give me Kennesaw State, though. They're gonna do it. I just trust some of these upset teams a lot. Kennesaw is one that I don't totally trust, honestly. There are other teams that I expect to be more of a Cinderella story, but I do think that Kennesaw could maybe make something happen there. Miami versus Missouri. Give me Miami there. It's been a little while since Miami has gone anywhere, hasn't it? Give me Miami. Purdue Queens, that's a layup. Give me Purdue. Braden Smith, elite guards, right? I trust good guards in March. As we get into the Midwest Division, this is the last one. Michigan, easy. I mean, those other first four teams are fighting for a chance to lose to Michigan. Georgia, St. Louis, I'm going to take Georgia there. I think that should actually be a really, really close game. St. Louis obviously got off to a really hot start and then kind of dipped a little bit. I don't totally trust them since they've played against not as great competition. Georgia, I just trust them a little more, especially since St. Louis has just not looked like the team that I would trust against Georgia as of more recently. Texas Tech, Akron. I'm taking Akron. This is another one. This is one that like Kennesaw State, where I sort of trust this team. And actually the next one too. Now I am taking Alabama in this bracket just because I didn't feel great about choosing so many. Now I do love a Cinderella story, so oftentimes when I pick my brackets, there are a lot of upsets. I would take. I think Hofstra. If I was to pick one Cinderella to bring onto this bracket that I don't have on it, I would choose Hofstra. I think that they're honestly a really good. Like they feel like a potential upset team. Akron does as well, though. I think that they have a good chance to beat Texas Tech, especially since Texas Tech hasn't super impressed me at any point. Once again, I'm a casual to this, so I could be completely wrong. Don't attack me. And now I'm going to take Tennessee. I do kind of want Miami, Ohio to do something just because they had such an incredible regular season. But I trust Tennessee more. And I just don't trust Miami, Ohio entirely. Now, their almost undefeated season was awesome, but I can't say that they're going to come into this, especially since like teams have actually been looking at them and like recognizing what they've been doing. I think that I'd take Tennessee there. I'm taking Virginia over Wright State. Shouldn't be too difficult there. I'm taking Santa Clara over Kentucky. I think Santa Clara is another one of my ones where they're one of my favorites to be an upset team. I just think that they're incredibly talented, or maybe not incredibly talented, but I think they are a talented team. I know that Kentucky is also great, but Santa Clara is going to be the next Jack Golke and take off Kentucky, and then Iowa State over Tennessee State. That's what I got. Now, as it goes into like I said, I have other brackets that I thought about and like put my picks into that. I think that one is probably my safest. No, not safest, but it's just a bracket that I sort of trust. Now, like I said, teams like Akron and Santa Clara and these other upsets that I picked, they could very possibly not win. I just like picking upsets. This is the year I'm getting a perfect bracket. So if you guys comment, maybe I'll give you part of my $1 billion or whatever I win. But that's it. Please let me know in the comments what I'm completely tripping about. Like you guys can yell at me. It's fine. Like I said, I'm a casual at this stuff. Like this is much more vibes. When we get to the NBA postseason, then we can talk about like genuine like matchups and rigorous things because that's stuff that I understand. I will watch as many March Madness games as I can. I love March Madness, but I do, I do recognize that it was pretty much just these guys feel good. These guys feel like someone I can trust. Probably not the best way to go about that, but whatever. We'll go right on to our games of the week here. So the way we're going to do this, so we went 5-2 in our last week, pretty good. Obviously, we didn't do games for the first part of this week just because I wasn't sure about what the scheduling was going to look like. But that brings us up to 62-22 on the year, 94-51 total. I would love to get to 100 wins before I get to like 55. That'd be great. And I would love to get to 70 wins before 30. 70% win percentage over that. That'd be great. So we're gonna work on that. I'm not going to count these three. I have 3 predicted games since we're going to go into into the weekend. We're going to have another episode then, and March Madness just kind of, I'm not really paying attention to NBA basketball at the moment. I love NBA basketball, but it's not the main priority right now. So I'm focusing on March Madness. Those 3 games, there's one Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They're not going to count towards the end thing. They're just my predictions. Wednesday, it's one of the first 4 games. It's Miami, Ohio versus SMU. So when you guys are watching that, that'll be that night. Give me Miami, Ohio. I know I said I don't totally believe them to do a lot in March, but I do think they should at least be able to beat a team in SMU who's not quite as good. Now, does that carry over to beating Tennessee? Probably not, right? But I do think that they should at least be able to do something against a somewhat lesser team. And hopefully keep that season. It was such a cool season. I'd like to see them actually be in the bracket. Thursday, that's the first day of the first round. That's Georgia versus St. Louis. That's my personal pick. There are tons of great games that day, obviously, but that's one that obviously 8-9 matchup. And then also just 2 teams that are good and have had good seasons, and I think it kind of could go either way. Like I already said, I'm taking Georgia. And then Friday, Clemson versus Iowa. I think that's one of my safer picks for upset. I was actually looking, and on the ESPN Fantasy app, like in the Tournament Challenge, that's the only underdog seed that has been picked more often than the higher seed, which is cool. I just think Iowa has a really good chance to be an upset team. Now, once again, I might be a little biased, and once again, I'm kind of a casual at this, but I do think that they should be someone who, they should be someone who does some damage in March Madness because of their shooting and because of their I can't say feel again. I can't say they just feel like one, but they have all of the characteristics of one of those teams who makes runs in March Madness. Let's say it like that, which is pretty much the same thing as saying they feel like it. So that's going to be it for today's episode. Obviously a little shorter just because I can't go into as deep of depth in my predictions because, once again, I don't know a whole ton, right? I watch college basketball, but I don't analyze it, right? So it's a little bit less. You got a little more of a fan's perspective from me today in terms of the basketball, just like casual fan. So it's not the most, analytic, like educational episode. I apologize, but we have to talk about March Madness. Of course, it's March. It's March. It's the best time of the year in terms of basketball. It'll be really, really fun. Now, we'll get back to the NBA probably after March Madness is more wrapped up. Like I said, I'll get an episode out for you guys this weekend. I don't think, maybe next weekend. We'll see. And that'll be probably a little bit more about March Madness. I'll probably be talking about the games from, it depends when I record it, and we might get back into NBA stuff. So I will let you guys know when that episode comes out, obviously. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully you guys have a great few days. Hopefully you guys enjoy March Madness, and hopefully one of you sends me part of the $1 billion if you win it. That would be awesome. I'll take like a couple thousand. I don't even need $1 million. Aren't I so humble? So yeah, I will see you guys next time. Hopefully you guys have a really good couple days. Thanks for listening.